So a judge chastises a young black male. Coming right up. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Common Sense, Logic, and Reason. And as always, I want to say thank y'all for joining me today. So, as black people, we waste our time on entirely too much nonsense. We focus on a whole bunch of nonsense that doesn't matter. Always crying about racism in all its various forms, and they're always coming up with these new forms of racism. They're crying about systemic racism, institutional racism, structural racism, kinetic racism, and bionic racism, hypersonic racism, every damn type of racism that they can cry about, they're going to cry about. And of course, they do this to create fear and hysteria and to create more nonsense to keep black folks, all the other black folks, stuck on stupid. This is what race hustlers do. But we focus so much on nonsense that the real issues never get addressed. The real issues always go unaddressed because of this constant focus on this crying about race and race this, race that, and black folks doing absolutely nothing until there's something race to cry about. Anyway, I saw a YouTube short of a judge criticizing a young black male for making stupid decisions.
I don't understand what's wrong with young people today. You're bringing nothing to the table. You don't have your GED. Public education is free. And as I tell everybody, people come over here from other countries, don't even speak English language. And the next thing you know, that person is the valedictorian of your school or first in your class because other people don't want to take advantage of the free opportunities that you have here. Slaves were not allowed to read or write. And they ended up sometimes to their detriment, to their death, learning how to read and write. And here you are with free education and you don't take advantage of it. All you're doing is hanging around with your hoodlum friends. They're not up to anything. You're not up to any good. You're at the Bexar County Jail. I don't know why you get an attitude with me because I'll give you 180 days at the state jail facility to give you a little taste of what it is. Trying to injure your sister who's only 16 over a phone charge that probably neither one of you paid for. Look at you now. You're in an orange uniform, no education, and now you're going to be on paper and you're going to have this felony following you around wherever you go.
Now, obviously, this kid, or I'm assuming kid, is a product of a fatherless home. What's so typical in inner city places or typical in the hood. This is quite typical in the hood. But she told him the same thing that I say to black folks all the time. There's nothing but opportunity in the United States of America. There's nothing stopping you or banning you or barring you from partaking in that opportunity. He has free education. I'm pretty sure he has free access to universities, or he can go to school if he wants to. There's no occupation, no job, no career path that he cannot participate in because he's black. So then why isn't he doing it? And you have people come to this country all the time with the clothes on their back and little money in their pocket, and they end up being success. People come to this country, kids will come here barely speaking English, and they graduate school with honors, high school with honors, right next to these same black kids who will be brainwashed and told that they're victims. The fact is that he doesn't really want to learn. And he wants to do a lot of the same thing that we see happening with so many blacks, in the hood. They want to hang out with their boys, but they don't want to do anything productive. And this right here, this is a cultural problem. What you see right there, that's a cultural problem born out of the Great Society and third wave feminism impact upon the black community. And as much as black people like to cry about today, like to cry about what black people had to face in the past. Those black people back then, if they could see what blacks today, they would be ashamed. They would be absolutely ashamed of what blacks today are doing. A lot of blacks today are doing with all this opportunity that they could have only dreamed of back then. And despite everything that they faced, they still persevered. The black family was still intact. And they built all these towns that blacks always crying about, where they were burned down. They burned this town down, Black Wall Street. They did all this under segregation and Jim Crow. So if those blacks were able to do that back then what should black people should be able to do today? Again, this is a culture problem. And instead of sitting here crying about racism, white supremacy, and all this other nonsense that doesn't exist, why wouldn't we take that energy and focus it to what the real problem is? It is the culture. Okay, what all black people need to do is, like I see all these blacks crying about white supremacy and looking at the white man. I always say that they take one giant ass about faith, and we need to be looking at the community and what's going on with each individual person in that community, and we need to hold each individual black person accountable instead of coming up with this group collective oppression nonsense. But if we keep crying about racism and white supremacy and focusing on non-existent nonsense, it's never going to happen. Anyway, like I said, this is a perfect example of what's wrong in the black community and why the black community is never going to get any better if all we keep doing is focusing on something that's not an issue. And as always, y'all, until next time.